This video is the second part of a 4-part examination on Infinity Train. While you don't have to watch the first to understand the second, it would really help me out if you did. Book 1 was a lot of people's favorites, mainly because they like Tulip quite a bit. And Tulip is a really good character. She's a bit of a dork, but her dorkiness isn't her standout trait. There's a lot more to her, and that much is evident by just how she acts. Tulip is a very analytical character, but she isn't the quote-unquote smart one. It's kinda cool how quickly the show establishes her as a 3-dimensional character. 2 minutes. It takes them 2 whole minutes to make her feel human. Like more than just a character for you to watch. She eats onions, she props herself up both jokingly and seriously, and is immediately tense whenever they get to her house, and offended whenever her friend just makes conversation. Automatically, you can tell that she is just dreading going home. She doesn't want to go back into the hell cell because everything is different than how it used to be. She'd rather just throw herself into her hobbies than deal with it, which is a feeling I understand quite well. Who wants to focus on the anger-inducing, unavoidable facts of life when they could just draw, or knit, or bake, or code? That's the main theme of Book 1. Coping with change. And the show is very careful to present the divorce between Tulip's parents as not bad, but necessary for both of them. It was actually my first nuanced look at the concept of divorce. People who were just incompatible with each other deciding that the best thing for everyone was for them to split up. And yeah, Tulip isn't fine right now, but at least she won't be talking about how her parents perfectly emulated no children in her 20s, and the only people who make that assertion are people who have parents that force themselves to stay together, quote-unquote, for the kids.
Do you think maybe we should think about getting it?
It is what it is. Let's just get Stewie to college and go from there.
All that venom you hurl at each other is going to drip onto your still-developing kid's head, and if you really do care about them, you'd make that venom an absolute non-issue by splitting up. In short, it's better to stay divorced for your child's short-term pain than to stay together and inadvertently cause them to spiral every time 2 of their loved ones have an argument. Anyway, Tulip keeps coding her game, and it's immediately obvious that she's just remaking Space Invaders. You know, I'm not entirely sure of this, so don't quote me. But I can totally see Tulip getting into coding specifically to avoid thinking about her parents splitting up. Tulip gets told by her mom that she can't go to game design camp because of her parents' messed up schedule. You can tell that her mom just hates this whole situation. You know, I really like Tulip's mom, actually. She seems really responsible. She takes offense to Tulip insinuating that they don't care about her, but doesn't push it beyond just saying, hey. She's talking to Tulip like an actual person, with feelings about the stuff that's going on. Because it's not just her business, it's Tulip's too. I also like how she explicitly states that it's not fair that any of this is happening, admitting her own fault. And you can tell that she has really good parents because her mom doesn't start harping on about how she lives under her roof, and under her roof she means to shut up and stop having negative feelings towards her, and this is what Tulip needs. Space to be mad at her mom, her dad, and the world at large. Basically, space to be 13. Unfortunately, this anger leads her to make a very drastic decision. The decision to run away from home and go off to Oshkosh herself. I like how they characterize Tulip as a really logical person, but also make sure not to forget that emotion can eclipse logic sometimes. And that exact thing leads to her getting on the train. Like, dude, this is the beginning of an r/no-sleep story. You're going to die. It's in the snow car where she meets up with One. Side note, this show is funny when it wants to be. I didn't mention it before, but Tulip making her parents sign a contract got a smile out of me, and this scene here is also really good.
Are you my mum?
What? What? Am I what?
Are you my mum?
The switch up is so funny. Tulip's pissy attitude returns when One starts inquiring about really general things, actually. She's got this I know what I'm doing vibe, and she immediately forgets her goal the moment she finds out she's been isekai'd.
Wow!
Oh.
Okay, listen, I know that it just bleeps and bloops right now, but I really like the show's sound design. It's so whimsical. Then we see the magic number of unknown meaning before the plot happens. And then we see the wasteland. And supposedly someone getting murked. Goddamn. The art direction in the show is really great too. Let's look at the train in the wasteland, for example. It's dirty and grungy, and you can tell that everything in this place has probably existed for an incalculable amount of time. You don't want to go into the wasteland. Ever. Because even though the train might kill you, whatever's out there definitely will. Side note, but rewatching the show after the big twist at the end is really fun, because a lot of what One says takes on an entirely new meaning. You're in a bad place right now is first thought to mean that the wasteland is bad, but it's really just One randomly telling Tulip that she's not mentally okay. Tulip gets off and runs away from the big death cloud and finds a bunch of giant roach dogs, which would definitely scare the bejesus out of anyone. And it's got wings. Get me the hell out of here. I think the best way to make something scary and dangerous is to have it evoke the phrase, "What the hell is that?" Anyway, after almost getting her soul sucked out, she starts mathing out how exactly to get off and not die. setting her on a quest to find the conductor. I like how stubbornly driven Tulip can be. She saw the train literally fade into the mist and still said she's getting out of here no matter what. That goes hard. In the next episode, Tulip and One blitz their way through a bunch of cars and we get our first number change, to which Tulip is immediately worried and begging for answers. Then One tells her that if it gets to 0, she'll disappear forever. Knowledge is power, and without knowledge she feels powerless. And now that she's been given knowledge, she's pissed that she didn't have it sooner. You know, this is probably why she's so into coding. Code can't ever not make sense, and if it doesn't, it's a problem with the coder. And shit, it's the best character! Tulip agrees to fix her magic orb car in exchange for the conductor to take her to Wisconsin. I really like the cat in all parts of Infinity Train. She is such a liar here, it's so good.
Don't think of it so much as a pyramid scheme, as a pyramid team.
And it's not even just for fun either, she's lying to get the locomotive dictator off her ass. In the scene where her number keeps shifting all around, I kept thinking to myself, I should really watch Alice in Wonderland. I've never once watched it, but given how both that movie and Infinity Train follow a girl finding herself surrounded by the most whack-ass shit imaginable, I can't help but think that some inspiration was taken here. Actually, in preparation for this video, I looked on Reddit and found out that Amelia's paper later on was about Alice in Wonderland. Oh, I haven't talked about Tulip's main learning thing here yet. Just because your friends are saying or doing things that may or may not annoy you, doesn't mean that you have the right to be mean to them, even if it means getting closer to your goals. I actually didn't realize that that's what this episode was talking about, just in macrocosm? Is that a word? It's a word now. Her interaction with Michaela earlier and her reflection mentioning her skipping text put that into perspective. I also like how she takes an I'm gonna make this better and no one can stop me approach to fixing things. She kinda reminds me of Luce Nocetta from the Owl House. She's always ready to fix things. In episode 3, we meet Atticus, who tells Tulip and One that the big ol' honkin' monster is destroying the place with water. At this point, Tulip is grasping at anything resembling a plausible reason for her number changing and not changing. So she lies to herself and says that this has to be it. And Atticus gives her some really strong wisdom here.
It's not fair. I'm going as fast as I can, but I'm getting nowhere.
Just because you can't figure things out immediately doesn't mean it won't happen eventually.
Yeah, but it feels like every time I find something logical about this train, it's thrown back at me and I'm stuck without answers.
We can't always force progress, Tulip. After all, I didn't have a solution to Corginia's problems until you showed up. You helped me, Tulip.
Thanks, Atticus.
And he's absolutely right. Sometimes you just gotta wait to find stuff out. Everyone wants answers now, but it's important to remember that you can't always have them now. They also find the steward, which also follows the design philosophy of fear brought about by the unknown. It's just a shambling mass of tentacles with a face that opens. Scott Cawthon made a game about this once. Something else really fucking cool happens here. One's voice changes when he talks to the steward.
You're awfully shooty today. Somebody needs to spend more time in the monster dance car.
Not glad one, not sad one, but just one. Like book 4-1. This is because he's giving the steward an order, whether he realizes it or not, which is why she leaves immediately. Fun fact, I once considered episode 4 to be the absolute weakest episode in the season, but that was before I realized the death of cringe culture was the only way to happiness. A gilded future is paved with the blood of cynicism, and Tulip singing Word Up in front of her besties is proof of that. This episode also tells Tulip that you can't just logic your way through everything, and that sometimes a more emotional solution is the answer. This kind of reminds me of how sometimes trying to fix a problem your friend is having, or advising them on how to not have the problem in the future, is the wrong thing to do. Sometimes what you need to hear isn't try X, Y, and Z, but damn, that fucking sucks. Or would a meme make you feel better? Because sometimes the emotional makes more sense than the logical. In the next episode, we get a little indicator of how far Tulip's come already. She only expresses momentary anger at the car just jumbling around and then moves on. Subtle, but still pretty good. Anyway, the bestie's back, and she hates it when people touch her shit, just like me for real. And she makes Tulip watch a tape filled with her own memories. All of them are bullshit, unfortunately, and she has to stare the dismaying truth in the face. Tulip is a smart person. She's quick on the uptake even when she doesn't want to be. Before her parents even talk about their separation, she looks off to the side. You can tell she's thinking, this is it. They're getting a divorce, and there's nothing I can do about it. She flips from trying to act fine to trying to distract herself from what's currently going on, and later adapts a let's just get this over with attitude. She wants to be done with it. She wants the conversation to be over. She wants to go back to pretending everything is fine. Because even though things aren't fine, they're normal, and normal is comforting. They tell her it isn't her fault, and up until this point she'd probably only ever skirted that idea out of her head, but the act of telling her that it's not her fault has cemented that doubt in her mind. Now she's wondering, is it my fault? Could I have prevented this? Did I mess up? Was it me? And she hates it. Then she blows up at them, surprising even herself. I think she's put so much effort into burying these memories and pasting newer, happier ones over them that seeing the actual truth of what happened is genuinely surprising to her. She says that knowing the truth doesn't feel any better, and she's right. Knowing the ins and outs of the tough shit you've gone through doesn't always help. But it's important to know, and it's important to look at it, and it's important to think about it. Because the sooner you can accept the reality of the situation, the sooner you can finally move on from it. And the music, good god, the music! Chrome Canyon was the perfect pick for this show. The background music feels so somber and dead, it really sells just how bad she feels. That along with Ashley Johnson's performance here. She feels so emotionally taxed here, it's a beautifully orchestrated scene.
That's definitely what happened. But knowing it sure doesn't feel any better.
Another really interesting part about it is how she doesn't remember this memory as twisted and happy. She remembers it as a hellish nightmare, the worst day of her life. But the way it played out turned out to be a lot more calm and sad than horrible. In an odd sort of way, there's comfort in finding a situation to be absolutely abhorrent with no ifs, ands, or buts. Because if it was just bad, you don't have to think about whether or not it was bad. It was just bad, and you know it was bad. That's why she pictures them as demons, because in the public eye, demons are just made of hate and bile. There are no good demons, just like there's no good in this situation. But the way it shook out wasn't bad, it was just heavy. It was saddening, but it wasn't a negative change. It's actually more along the lines of a positive change, but it doesn't feel like that in the moment. It's kind of like spraying Bactine on a cut. It hurts like hell, but it's ultimately for the best. Anyway, Tulip forgoes her number problems after that emotionally draining experience and heads out, and then the plot comes back. The presumed conductor shows up, and the steward breaks all the cat shit. Episode 6 also gets really heavy. One is pathologically obsessed with fixing the broken car Amelia made, blaming himself for the lack of order. The turtles don't really seem to mind, though. I get the sense that they either showed up and thought this was normal, or just started existing and thought this was normal. Either way, they don't really care. One starts ripping everything apart, and we get a line from Tulip that just hits you in the heart.
I know what it's like to think that if you had just been better, things would have been different. That you're responsible for fixing things that are beyond your control. Just know that I speak from experience when I say, this is not your fault.
She's right. Trying to control things that you have no control over just hurts everyone. I'm not 100% on this, but it kinda sounds like Tulip is implying that she tried to keep her family together, even though her parents' marriage wasn't her responsibility. No child is ever going to be responsible for how their parents' lives turn out, and no child should ever try to be. You don't see her number change here, but you know for a fact that her saying this, both to 1-1 and herself, made it shoot down to like 18 or something. This isn't my favorite episode in the season, but it's the one that impacted me the most. I'd consider it the best one here. Speaking of my favorite episode, the Chrome Car is my favorite episode in Book 1, purely off of the concept alone. Your reflection is an actual person, and it's got feelings and shit. God damn, that is interesting as hell. And they've got their own rules and regulations about society, which we'll come to find out are pretty similar to her own. Tulip's reflection decides to cut her off immediately, opting to live their own life instead of reflecting somebody else's. But Mirror One calls the cops to arrest them for using the wrong bathroom. I mean, because he's a dirty narc. And it's very telling that they go from 0 to murder in the span of 10 seconds. And then we get another really good moment.
You're always in your room ignoring everyone. You never ask for help. I'm not ignoring everyone. I can just handle my problems myself. That's completely different. Skipping text from Michaela, pretending you couldn't hear Mom because, sorry, I was just so busy making my game. Just go away, Tulip. That's what you do best. Okay, you're right. I don't like asking for help when I have a problem. I guess I should.
This is quite literally Tulip taking a long, hard look at herself in the mirror. After all, who else would know you more personally than your own reflection? The line, just go away, that's what you do best, is a hard truth she's gotta learn. Because yeah, she's been pushing everyone away just so she can pretend she's so self-reliant that nothing can hurt her. I'm realizing just how far she's come here. Back in episode 1, she was blowing up at people over simple questions about her life, but now she's explicitly assessing the fact that she's got some traits she would be better off without. I know some adults who are pathologically obsessed with never ever being wrong, so to see a child explicitly call out their own issues is really refreshing. Infinity Train really is just the most elaborate and unnecessary form of therapy, isn't it? We also get a sneak peek at the beginning of Lake's arc. They're hoping that Tulip doesn't just scan them into being a reflection forever, accepting help so they can finally just be themselves. They're putting a lot of faith into Tulip, something they're gonna have to relearn later on. The two kinda teach each other here. Both of them didn't want to accept help, and the only way they could ever get what they wanted was through accepting help. And Lake wants to be the most independent person ever in Book 2, but recognizes that you can still be an individual with someone, and that your truly loved ones will help you with no caveats. Also, damn, I can't believe 1-1 said ACAB.
Hello, Miss Tulip. We're melting people.
And Tulip's number is at an all-time low, hooray for her. Side note, I tried for so damn long to find a multi-tool like Tulip's, and I couldn't. None of them have mirrors, much less magnetic properties. It made me so mad I want my Blorbo's thingy from my show, damn it! Next episode sees them excavating a McDonald's play place. Yeah, they should really make these things for adults, too. Let me have an ounce of joy doing shit I barely ever got to, please. Anyway, Atticus starts giving the traditional, I love you, and you're my friend, and we're besties, and I can't wait to go back home and eat my favorite meal speech right before your favorite anime character dies horrifically. Naranja didn't deserve this shit, you evil bitch. You know, I really like how the show can set up and switch an episode around like this. It's literally just walk through the playplace and have tons of fun, and then the plot decides to come crashing through the wall halfway through. Why, hello, Amelia. She's such an evil bastard here. Imagine murdering a girl's best friend right in front of her and then just leaving. Except you actually didn't murder one of them, you just turned them into a fucking cryptid, which is worse. One gives some sage advice in the middle of all this, saying,
"It's okay to cry."
And yeah, it is. Crying is a means of letting out emotion. It's like laughing when you're happy or screaming when you're angry. There's no reason to be embarrassed by crying, especially now. Tulip is bummed as hell, sinking back into doomorist absolutes before the cat tells her,
Fatalism doesn't suit you, kitten. After all, you're my favorite person, arbitrarily named after a particular kind of flower.
Even when she's trapped in plastic and internally bleeding, the cat is still the best. Also, doesn't this shot right here kind of look like a scene from Family Guy? Did anybody else pick up on that? Just me? Okay. Anyway, they travel into the conductor's tape and find the backstory of Amelia and Ulrich. We get to see that they were once in love, and Amelia got on the train after his death. Now, some people don't like this part of the show, and I can understand why. The twist was unnecessary. We didn't need to see the story have a, whoa, what the hell moment at the end, but I can see why Owen Dennis did this from a writer's perspective. He wanted to have a little fun with the show. He liked setting up the twist in this episode. And no, it doesn't fit in organically, but I'm happy it was brought up and revealed within 6 minutes of the episode's runtime, instead of being brought up in episode 3, then revealed in episode 9, being teased the whole way through. He wanted to do something unnecessary and knew how to make it offend the least amount of people. I can respect that. They get out of the tape, and Tulip laments about how she doesn't want to feel bad for the conductor. This speaks to me as a really interesting lesson that everyone should take about, well, everyone. Terrible people don't come out of the womb being terrible. They have to make that decision. So, at the end of the day, by default, they're still people. Everyone's a person, and every person's hardships deserve to be taken seriously. Not to say that you should coddle evil people just because they've also been through some tough shit, but you should never discredit their pain because they've decided to become a monster. Because doing that only makes things worse for everyone. Everyone deserves support when they go through tough shit. Just like everyone deserves a swift kick in the dick when they wake up and decide to be a shitster. Amelia needs support the same way she needs to be accosted by a sack of nickels. Anyway, this leads Tulip to state another hard truth out loud. She's scared of change. Not good change or bad change, but just change. And when she realizes that, she gets her exit. But she can't just leave now. There's more work to be done. Atticus isn't okay, and the conductor hasn't had her sack of nickels.
Damn it! No! Why?
So she jury-rigs a train car controller out of a severed arm and a car ball and rides it up to the engine. She rocks up inside and throws the trauma cube at Amelia, which is tantamount to throwing a scrub daddy at someone with trypophobia. Amelia poses a really good question here. What if you could make a world where everything is exactly how you want it to be? Or, more accurately, what if you could go back? Tulip thinks about this for only a moment before cracking her in the head with a pipe, which, according to Google, is about 25% nickel. A far cry from the traditional sack, but it still works.
Nickels!
But yeah, this is actually a really good question. Everyone wants to go back. Everyone wishes they could go back to a time where everything was lovely and fine and beautiful and they didn't have all this fucking baggage. But you can't. You can never go back. You have to keep going forward, so you have to learn to live with the change. Amelia can't go back to being with Ulrich, and Tulip can't go back to being with her married parents. They need to cope with the changes and move forward. Because otherwise, you end up like Amelia. Bitter, cold, and sad. Chasing a time that hasn't existed for decades and taunting 13-year-olds over losing their dogs and parents.
Alright, fatty. Adopted fatty. Fatty, no parents. What?
What exactly is wrong with being adopted?
What's wrong with being adopted? Lack of parents.
One pops himself back into the engine and reopens Tulip's exit. Tulip tells Amelia that adaptation is the only way to happiness, shares a hug with her friends, and exits the train. We see her 7 months later, ready for game design camp again, and we get a little peek of her current family situation. There's a degree of trust between Tulip's parents that I like a lot. They aren't in love, but they're still a team. Tulip says she's ready for anything, and the show ends. Yeah, it's no wonder why they got signed on for 3 more seasons, and it's really sad that they didn't get signed on for the allotted 8. Book 1 is jam-packed with story, world-building, fantasy, mystery, everything you could want in a show. You really want to be on the train a lot of the time. These cars look incredible. 1-1's odd placement on the train, coupled with his odd mannerisms and dialogue, take on an entirely new meaning upon rewatch. It's one thing to have dialogue take on a double meaning, but it's another thing entirely to only have you suspect something at episode 9 out of 10. The setup and payoff in the series is brilliant most of the time. And the reason the show sticks in your brain the way it does is because its themes are fucking impeccable. The show has the audacity to say a child of divorce isn't an inherently bad situation and I can fucking prove it. And then fucking proves it with no room for error. It's a nuanced take on divorce, at least from my perspective. I don't know if I'm just weird, but anytime I hear about a divorce, it's always some SML Playtime shit. And either side talk about it like they're reciting No Children.
How dare you, Julia? Why would you ever say that in front of me? Because it's true. It happens every
So to see two parents who are divorced and not constantly fighting was a breath of fresh air. The show is also damn funny when it wants to be, 1-1 driving most of the comedy forward. And just going, to the question, how are you able to manipulate the mind tape? Got a chuckle out of me, he's so great. Amelia too, a lot of the time she's just Wheatley if he was 30% more competent. The other books chill way out on everything, but that isn't a bad thing. Quite the opposite, actually. I said this in a post while I was writing the script. The books after book 1 have less story, but they aren't less of a story. They're just relatively normal stories on the train. They didn't need the big spectacle like last time to be good, they just needed to be good stories. We'll come to find that out in the next few books, especially book 3. I and a lot of others considered that one to be the best, and it didn't have some earth-shattering shakeup to the formula. Hell, Grace doesn't even get her exit, no one does. But it's still great because it had a really great theme. A theme I hadn't seen a lot in, well, really any media. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. We'll cover book 3 after we cover book 2. Next time. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you liked it, tell me why, and if you didn't, tell me how to improve. I primarily make these videos to foster discussion, but I'm hoping to eventually earn some cash off of them, so if you could share this video around, that would be great. I'm Carb, and thank you for watching.